To the second Green Africa Foundation conversation around climate change and politics. Today I am taking you through the conversation as your moderator. I'd like to apologize for the absence of Joe Ageyo, who would have loved to be here with us, but due to some work engagements, he has given me the honor of being able to take us through this session for today morning. I would like to recognize the presence of a number of our speakers already. His Excellency the Governor, Dr. Wilber Ottichilo, karibu sana. We have Emmaqulate Kemunto. Welcome very much, Emmaqulate. We have Modesta Lynn, who is also going to be speaking to us today. She's here with us. Elizabeth Matioli is also here with us. I also like to recognize the presence of Mr. John Kioli, the ED of Green Africa Foundation. In the interest of time, we would like to be able to start this process, this discussion today. I look forward to a very engaging conversation with everybody. And to set us off, I would like to request Mary Mutemi to just welcome us to this space. Mary Mutemi, are you online? Yes, I see you. Please, Mary.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Mbandi. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mbandi. I'm so glad to join this dialogue this morning, and I'm happy to see that we have quite a number who have joined. So do you want me to start with a word of prayer, then we get started with the meeting?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
All right, let us believe and pray. Almighty Father, we want to thank you for this beautiful morning. We are here for an important meeting. We are discussing matters climate change. We know that, Father, you've given us the responsibility to take care of our environment. As we have this discussion, we ask you to guide all the deliberations, bless all the speakers, bless all the participants, and let everything happen to your goodness. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. So please, Mary,
yes.
Tell us why we're here.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, so tell us why we are here.
Okay. Good. Good morning once more. And again, I would like to welcome all of us here this morning. Green Africa Foundation usually holds a series of Zoom meetings or Twitter dialogues as well. We normally have different topics around climate change and all the issues around climate change. So today is one of those meetings that we've organized, and our today's topic, we just want to understand whether climate change is an election agenda. This is a very current topic, and we are happy to see that we are joined by experts today. But even before we get started with this meeting today, before we get started with the discussions, I would like to give you an overview of who is Green Africa Foundation. So Green Africa Foundation is a CSO. The organization implements practical community-driven projects. They also do a lot of advocacy, capacity building, and to adopt efficient and sustainable environment and livelihood options. There are different thematic areas under which the organization implements projects. We have renewable energy, we have environmental governance, environmental conservation, and also tree planting activities. So with that in mind, and with the interest of the organization in environmental conservation and climate change issues, that is where now we are interested in this topic. because as we deal with the communities, we need to show them where are the solutions. We have many solutions in climate change action. Sorry, there's some noise in the background. Okay. We have various solutions in climate change action, and these solutions or these actions, they can only be practicable if we have the political goodwill, the kind of leaders that we have in our country. And that is why now we are organizing this discussion to have the talk. So we hope that we are not only going to have the discussions, but we are also going to have the participants here today implementing the same on the ground at the grassroots level with the communities where we are working. Thank you very much. I take it back to you, Mr. Mbandi.
Thank you very much, Mary. It's very interesting. This is a conversation today morning when I was preparing for this session. I read something very interesting. It's something that was written by somebody who is a Christian. It says, a man or a society that does not react to offering a solution to an injustice and makes no effort to alleviate people who are suffering is still distanced from the love of Christ's heart. And this is very interesting because we are discussing climate change, which is affecting quite a number of us in different ways, in different capacities. So just to speak a little bit towards the conversation we're going to have today, given the far-reaching impact of climate change and the very essence of collectiveness of climate change, a country like ours, Kenya, needs to have effective policies and also achieve deep long-term reduction on greenhouse emissions while protecting its citizenry. I mean, we have to think about this because this we are talking about climate change and politics, protecting its citizenry from what you would call the socioeconomic point of climate change, the impacts of the economy, the impacts of the social space of our society. And this brings the three arms of any government together, and that is legislature, executive, and judiciary. And the question I think we are going to be discussing today is what does this mean for our politics and the society at large? And if we start thinking about what are the three areas that I believe our different speakers will address this, we have issues around what government is doing on research and development. We have to think about what businesses are doing to reduce the carbon footprint. Although at times we talk about business and forget about ourselves, because we also have to put ourselves into this category of what are we doing as individuals to reduce the impact of climate change through reduction of gas emissions. There's a question of fuel efficiency and emission standards. What are we doing around that? And what tax incentives are existing? And then you have the market-based approach. What are the markets doing? What innovative spaces do we have out there that are allowing us to do things differently? So all these are conversations I believe we are going to have today. I am looking forward to seeing how we engage and what aspects we can bring out. As I said earlier, we have a very interesting panel with us today, starting with His Excellency, the Governor for Vihiga, Dr. Wilber Ottichilo. We have Dr. Isaac Kalua, Green, who is a party leader of Green Thinking Action Party. We have Emmaqulate Kemunto, who is going to speak to us a little bit around the issues that we as CSOs, what do CSOs do and development partners when it comes to climate change, and especially the partnerships that we have with persons like the Royal Danish Embassy. We have, that's Elizabeth Matioli, sorry, that's Elizabeth Matioli. Emmaqulate Kemunto will be speaking to us from Climate Change Lawyers Cafe. Then you have Modesta Lynn, who is a trainee Society for International Development. He's a program trainee in the Society for International Development. So Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I think we will start with our first panelist, if he has arrived. His Excellency, I don't know whether he has come in yet. Could you confirm? Okay. I am told he's on the way. He will be here very soon. I imagine that with the workload at his desk, at times these things get a little bit difficult to get to in time. In that case, I will request that we have Elizabeth Matioli to speak to us this morning. And Elizabeth will be covering a very simple conversation. Just hold on a moment. I just want to make sure that we have this right. So Elizabeth will be looking into what climate action requires. Climate action requires concerted efforts by state actors, private sector, CSOs, and development partners. And we know that the Danish embassy has been doing quite a bit when it comes to working around climate change in the country, supporting CSOs, supporting private investors in trying to reduce the impacts of climate change. So Elizabeth, where do you see Kenya in terms of these partnerships that we are having in this country? Is Elizabeth online? I think I'd seen her earlier. Mary Butami, did Elizabeth follow? Because I'd seen her online.
Yeah, I think Mbandi, probably she's having some difficulty in connecting. So maybe we can start with Modesta, maybe.
Okay. Very good.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Yes, maybe the host can also be unmuting the speakers immediately they are mentioned. Maybe she could have tried to talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll check on that. We'll check on that. Thank you very much, Mary. So in that case, then we're going to start with Emmaqulate Kemunto, who is a lawyer and the founder of Climate Change Lawyers Cafe. Basically, I think lawyers are guys who we find on both sides of the divide. The side where they are saying that we should continue polluting, and the side that says that we need to take care of ourselves. So, Emma, what's the space for women and politicians in the climate change policy space?
Thank you very much, Anthony. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, quite clearly.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emmaqulate Kemunto. I'm a lawyer. My interests are around human rights, climate change, environment, and energy. I run an initiative called Climate Change Lawyers Cafe, and the goal is to enhance a lawyer's role in just climate action. How can African lawyers play a part in just climate action, be it through advocacy, be it through rendering legal aid, and also in the various fields that we practice in? How do we incorporate climate justice issues? And I also work at the Kenya Civil Society Platform on Oil and Gas. So I've been tasked to speak on the role of women politicians in climate change. And I'll just like to start with a bit of background. So the majority of around the 1.5 billion people who live below poverty line are women. So climate change affects all of us, but it affects us differently. And it is a threat multiplier, especially to populations that have been marginalized time and again, marginalized communities, marginalized populations, such as women, children, the elderly. So that as we experience impacts of climate change, there are populations that are bound to experience them in a more intensified level. So I'll give an illustration. Women have an intimate relationship with the environment. I mean, as in Kenya, we are fed by rural women through agriculture and all that. Our homesteads are run by women. And so when we have adverse impacts of climate change, like prolonged droughts, women have to go look for this water. And when we have disasters, women really face a lot of impacts, especially gender-based violence, sexual-based violence during these disasters. So what I'm trying to say is that for this reason, then, we cannot afford to have policies and laws which are gender blind. And gender blind because when you say a law is gender blind, you're saying it's addressing an issue from an overall perspective, which really should not or is not the case. So women politicians come into play first. I think the most important role of women politicians in climate action is amplifying the woman's voice in climate decision-making, environmental decision-making. There has been a study, there was a 2019 study by a European institution, scientific institution, that parliaments with majority, parliaments where majority of parliamentarians are women have been seen to make more stringent climate change laws and policies. Data coming from the COVID-19 and how the response has been from various countries. There is evidence showing that women-led solutions or women-led countries have sort of had an effective response to climate change. So showing that women do respond effectively, especially in times of crisis. So women have to come out strongly, especially women who've been privileged enough to find themselves in the decision-making table and amplify the voice of women in decision-making. And what this will do is it will promote gender-responsive climate policies. It will promote gender-responsive laws. For instance, we are coming, the National Climate Change Action Plan of 2018-2022 is coming to an end, and we are entering the negotiation phase, or rather the planning phase for 2023-2027. So female politicians and really all leaders have this perfect chance to ensure that gender equality in climate action is a specific objective. It's not usually gender issues are mentioned as cross-cutting issues in policy matters. And with this, we run a risk of overlooking very, very important aspects in climate action. So ensuring that gender equality and gender responsiveness is one of the key objectives in the upcoming 2023-2027 National Climate Change Action Plan. That will be a great way to start. And I'm happy to say that we currently, the women aspiring for leadership, especially young women, have been very vocal on issues of environment, on issues of climate change. And this in itself is inspiring, even for grassroots women who are pulling together resources and mobilizing on climate action and environmental protection. So I think I'd leave it here for now, and I look forward to where the discussion is going, and also to come in during plenary. Thank you very much, Antony.
Thank you very much, Emmaqulate. I would ask one question before we let you just be quiet for a while. From a legal perspective, and not only talking about climate change, we're also talking about environmental pollution. And we are in that season where there is all this music playing around. From a legal point of view, and from a young person, what do you think about the noise pollution?
Well, I'd like to assume that all this is licensed by NEMA, because NEMA is in charge of licensing all issues to do all activities that might have an impact on, that might generate noise pollution. And so I'd like to really believe that all this has been licensed by NEMA, and it's happening under a regulated environment.
Thank you very much, Emmaqulate. Thank you very much. Now I would like to move on and recognize the presence of His Excellency, the Governor, Dr. Wilber Ottichilo, who I would like to bring on board now, and connected to what has just been said by Emma, and ask whether, what are the thoughts on government's actions towards climate change, and are we doing enough from where you sit as a governor, Your Excellency?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, sir. Most welcome.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yes, first I want to say I'm very happy to join you in this discussion. It's a very interesting discussion, and a discussion that is close to my heart. And therefore, I want to say thank you for the invitation to participate in the discussion and contribute my views about climate change and whether it should be a campaign agenda. First and foremost, I want to say that as a country, in terms of legal framework, we have done extremely well. And probably we are among the few countries in Africa who have put the appropriate legal framework on climate change. But unfortunately, as Kenya is well known, we are good at putting up good policies, good legislation, but when it comes to implementation, it becomes a big challenge. And I think this is the case with climate change. Kenya was the first country in Africa to enact a climate change act in 2016. But to date, we are in 2022. That climate change has not been operationalized in its entirety. There are quite a lot of issues that have not been operationalized or implemented, and particularly the National Climate Change Council, because the council is so crucial in the implementation of that act. But unfortunately, to date, the council is not operational, and that has made it very difficult to implement the act. We have raised this matter to the highest level, and when we are debating this act, or this act in Parliament, we say that the council should be anchored in the highest office on the land, because climate change is a crucial factor in all our sectors of the economy, and more or less affects everything. And that's why we agreed that the office of the president, or the presidents, should be the chair. And we had a long discussion. Quite a number of members of parliament said we were putting this in the highest office, and it would be very difficult to implement. But we say the president, is not necessarily that the president must be the one chairing. The deputy can chair or any other designated senior person. But unfortunately, that has not happened. So I want to say from the onset that having been the proponent of that act, and we worked with so many civil societies on it, we feel disappointed that now we are going to another election and this has not happened. However, I want to say that despite of that, a lot has been achieved in this country in terms of climate change. There are a lot of initiatives that have been started by various players and stakeholders. And I want to commend the civil society for doing a commendable job, like the Green Africa Foundation. I think they've done a very good foundation, a good job, and many other civil societies. Equally, the government or the Minister of Environment has played a key role in the coordination of the climate change issues. But I think the Directorate of Climate Change has not been as active as before. Before, we used to have very, very, very dynamic, very aggressive officers in that directorate. But from my own experience, I may be wrong, I feel that, you know, the energy of that directorate has gone down. If I compare with the earlier people we worked with when we were coming up with the climate change strategy, climate change plan, action plans, and all these things. So we need to go back to the drawing board on that aspect. However, there are good news. The good news is that we in the county governments, through the Council of Governors, we've taken, in the last 3 years, we have taken climate change as a key matter or a key issue that we made a decision that we must mainstream climate change in all our development agenda throughout in all the sectors of economy. And I think in the last 3 years, the Council of Governors and the counties have done a commendable job. And I think I'm now convinced beyond doubt that climate change should be mainstreamed at the county level, and then from the county level to the ward level and to the village level. And therefore, that's the way we are going to have climate change issues, particularly adaptation, worked out. So I want to commend the Council of Governors for the effort we have taken. And you remember last year, we had a very successful conference. I consider the most successful of all the Council of Governors conferences. We had the 7th conference in Emmaqulate, where we focused on climate change. And I can assure you, all of us agree, of all the conferences we did from conference 1 to 7, the 7th one was the most successful because we really focused on climate change and how it's impacting on our livelihoods and how it is a major threat to our own existence. And a lot of good papers were presented, lots of good discussions were given out, and lots of good recommendations were made. And I'm happy to report that we have implemented, as counties, we have implemented a lot more than 80% of what we recommended in Emmaqulate. And I'm happy that being the chairman of the Environment and Climate Change Committee in the Council of Governors, we have done very well. And I want to commend all the counties, what they have done, because as we are talking now, 38 counties have already enacted laws on climate change. We have now 38 have climate change acts. We have climate change policies. We have climate change strategies, and we have also enacted climate change action plans. So this to me is quite commendable. And in the preparation towards the conference in Emmaqulate, we participated fully in the planting of over 2 million trees across various counties. And that was a very, very successful exercise. So I would say that as counties, we have done very well. But at the national level, we have not done well. I was in Glasgow, and I just felt that, you know, we at a national level, the coordination, Kenya is a leader in climate change. But I was in Glasgow and couldn't have even an office where to sit. We were just walking around like, you know, like dragonflies and trying to find places where to sit. Even when our president was there, we couldn't have an office. But small countries like Burkina Faso, Chad, had offices. Then I wondered, are we serious? So we need to go on the drawing board when it comes to the Climate Change Directorate at a national level. And this issue of the Climate Change Council, I'm hoping now, I don't think we may do anything. I'm hoping the next government must do it. And for me, who is in Azimio Umoja, I have told my party leader, who is our presidential candidate, that the climate change is an issue that we must mainstream. And when he was preparing his agenda, I presented a concept on what should be done. And I'm happy that that has been captured in his 10-point agenda under food security and smart agriculture. So I'm convinced, with God's blessing, with my party leader and also the presidential candidate, if he wins the election, climate change is going to be a major component of our development agenda. Finally, I want to say that we here in Vihiga, we have done very well, and we are very happy and proud of ourselves. I think we are among the first 5 counties to enact the Climate Change Act. We have put in place the policy, we have put in place the strategy, we have put in place the Climate Change Action Plan, and now we have gone ahead and done what the project, the FLOCA project, that was supposed to do, which again is dragging. You can imagine, money has been availed by the World Bank. The project was approved last year in October. To date, the Treasury is still dragging their feet. They couldn't put it in on the budget, so it could not even be budgeted. But even after budgeting again, there have been so many bureaucracy. So we decided, for us, where in Vihiga, we will not wait. In any case, we have said as counties that in each of our laws, in each of our acts, we have said that a certain percentage of amount of money of the budget must be dedicated to climate change. And we have specified it should be between 1% and 3%. For us here in Vihiga, we have settled for 3%. So we decided that we have money. In fact, this financial year, I had the 80 million to do climate change activities. And what we have done, we have established climate change planning committees at the ward level. We have 25 wards in Vihiga. So we already have 25 climate change planning committees at the ward level. After that, we have undertaken training for all of them. So all our committees are well trained. We took them for very rigorous training, and now they are well knowledgeable on the issue of climate change, and particularly the issue of climate adaptation to climate and mitigation. We have gone a step further, which FLOCA is FLOCA, the first funding of FLOCA was supposed to build capacity and create all these committees to the 47 counties. But as I said, it's still there, and we're still hoping. But for us, we have gone ahead. We have gone further and said we have done the training. Now we have gone the second component of trying now to empower the committees to come up with investment programs and projects under climate change at their local level, at the world level. As I'm talking now, we are implementing 5 investment projects related to climate change in 5. Because of climate change most of the projects, most of those committees have settled on water issues, provision of water in the counties. Now, given that climate change is affecting directly the provision of water projects are the ones that have their focus on. So I want to say that at the county level, we are doing well. But at the national level, we need to go back on the drawing board. But I want to emphasize that the civil society should still up their game, because civil societies in this country are the only ones who make things happen. They are the ones who push. And with that, they are the ones who have pushed climate change in this country to where it is. So I want to implore on the civil societies, let us not relent. Let us move forward. And as we prepare to go to Egypt on COP27, we need to prepare and push the government further. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency. We know it's a busy time, and it's that time of the year, or that season of the year when we have to look for a political discourse. There's something you mentioned that is very interesting: the disconnect between the paper and the actual implementation. We develop the papers and then implement. And I would like to speak to this because at the national level, His Excellency, the President, spoke about Kenya being the voice of climate change at the Security Council. And at times, and this is where we bring the local context. Sometimes, we speak very well up there, but we do nothing on the ground. The question I want to put out to you, do our communities have the skills? Do they have the information? And do we have the resources required to implement simple projects that will solve the problem of climate change at our local context, not looking so much at the bigger context?
And the Council of Governments, because we realize that if we don't budget for climate change activities, and we depend on the, let's say, getting donors, or depending on the National Climate Change Council, because within that council, we have a National Climate Change Fund, which should be receiving money every year from Treasury through the Parliament. And that was supposed to provide money to the players, the civil society, to the counties. But that has not happened. I remember when I was in Parliament, we provided money to that fund 2 years in the consecutive before I left. I think it was 2017, but I don't know what happened. So that's why we decided as Council of Governors, we budget for it in our budget. It becomes a budget line. And that's what we have done through the formulation of our climate change legislation. So each of the 38 counties that have already enacted the law, they have that. And therefore they can fast track and do simple climate change adaptation activities and awareness without having to look for donors or so. But this FLOCA project, Financing Locally Led Climate Action Program, we worked for it first when we were in Madrid. Me was there with the PS of planning, Dr. Muya, and we engaged the World Bank, and it's from there that this project was conceived, and it's from there that we followed up, and the World Bank came to all our counties, and we formulated this project with a hope that money could trickle down to the wards. And indeed, the World Bank did their work, we did our work. But again, as I said, the problem with us is implementation. The money is there, the money has come, but the bureaucracy has made it not work. So We are now in fact, I was shocked the other day, the World Bank were around here on a World Bank mission to do monitoring and evaluation. So I was asking them, I made them. So what are you coming to monitor and evaluate? We have given us the money is still seated in treasury. So what are you coming to? So I think we as counties, we want counties to take this matter of climate change directly. FLOCA, we are hoping that the money will be trickled down, but meanwhile, we should not wait. And for other donors, I think it's high time that other donors and development partners should deal with the counties direct, or the economic blocks. Like for us in the Lake Region economic block, we would rather want to deal with development partners that focus on the economic block, because climate change is cross-cutting, and Vihiga is a small place here. The impact of climate change covers the whole Lake Region.
Thank you very much. Asante Sana, I think this is very crucial. I think what I take away from what you're saying is that at times from where we sit, we only think that the frustration is at our level. I think the frustration is at everybody's level. The question is, how do we unlock these frustrations so that everybody can be able to move forward? So we can find solutions that actually serve our communities. Thank you very much for the insights. I would like to bring in Elizabeth Matioli at this particular moment, because there's something you have mentioned there specifically around CSOs, civil society organizations, and funding, and what we can do in terms of increasing funding at the local level. We have Elizabeth Matioli from Climate and Resilience at the Royal Danish Embassy with us today. And I would like her to speak a little bit more around Kenyans and the partnerships of CSOs, and how climate action requires, how the concerted effort of everybody can be able to deliver an impact on changing the trajectory we have on climate change. So my question to Elizabeth Matioli is, where do you see Kenya in terms of the partnerships around CSOs and development partners and private sector when it comes around climate change? Elizabeth? I see she's here. Is she able to unmute? There.
Hello.
Yeah, hi Elizabeth. Oh, you muted again. There you are. Okay. Please go ahead, we can hear you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to join this meeting this morning, to also appreciate Your Excellency, Ottichilo. I think your passion on climate change is just unquestionable, and I think it's been quite persistent. It's such a pleasure to hear you talk about what you're doing at the county level, and also how your involvement in FLOCA, which I'll speak to at some point in my presentation. So thank you very much for the topic that you have provided. Indeed, the statement here is that climate action requires concerted efforts by state actors, private sector, civil society, and development partners. So I want to take it, when we are talking about development partners, it's in a broader sense, not just the typical donors that are in country, but you're also thinking about partnerships between countries. And I would say that I could not agree more with that statement. The world has reached a consensus that climate change is actually one of the greatest challenges of our time. And if we are to go by the IPCC reports, the recent reports that they've released, I think it's very clear that we are faced with the worsening and intensifying climate impacts. Also, I think Dr. Ottichilo, I think from the Glasgow conference, it's becoming evident that some of these impacts have gone to a level where you cannot even talk of adaptation. It is now a conversation around loss and damage. So I'm just saying this to, hello, can you hear me? Can you see me now?
Now we can see you, yes.
Oh, great, yeah. Sorry, I think I hadn't flipped the button. Okay. So you were talking to an empty screen. Yes. Apologies for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, apologies for that. Yeah, so I think I was at the point where I'm saying that the reason why I'm mentioning the findings of the IPCC reports is to just underscore the fact that this, climate change is quite a complex challenge, a really complex challenge. And for us to address it in its complexity, we definitely need to come at it with all the arsenal that we can come at it with, all the tools and all the solutions we can come at, that we can tackle it with, and when you look at what we need to tackle climate change, there is technology, there is financing that Dr. Ottichilo has really emphasized. There is knowledge that we need from the scientists. There is investments. There's all kinds of things that we need. And this cannot be found in one category of actors. And that is why I want to just say that partnerships are very crucial, because through partnerships, we are able to leverage each other's strengths, each other's resources, and be able to address the question of climate change. Now, from Denmark's perspective, just getting back to the question about where we feel, what we view as the state of partnerships in addressing climate change here in Kenya. In our view, there are really good examples of partnerships here in Kenya. I think the question that we would ask ourselves is really in relation to what Dr. Ottichilo has mentioned. It's the question of the functionality of these partnerships. And the other thing is, we note that a lot of these partnerships are more or less bilateral partnerships, which are good, but we feel that it would be better if we have multi-partnerships where we have more than two partners, because as I said, we need quite a lot of resources to address climate change. So we have very good examples, and Dr. Ottichilo has mentioned FLOCA, the program, which is a national program supposed to address all the 47 counties of Kenya. Of course, Nairobi and Mombasa being more urban areas, there will be a sort of a limit as to the extent of support that they will get through FLOCA. FLOCA is a really good example of a partnership, because World Bank is funding the government of Kenya. It's a partnership between World Bank and the government of Kenya. And then on the other hand, Denmark and Sweden have joined into FLOCA. And we've also done outreach to other European Union member states, such as Germany and the Netherlands. And we know that they are at a very advanced stage of discussing with the World Bank and the government of Kenya. They are coming into the FLOCA program. They do want to also fund FLOCA. So I think for us, FLOCA has been a sort of flagship program where we want to demonstrate how to actually put together a functional partnership that can support a country such as Kenya to address climate change. And just to say that, yes, I acknowledge some of the challenges that Dr. Ottichilo has mentioned may be there at this point in time, but to say that as the co-financers of FLOCA, together with Sweden and also with World Bank, we are conscious that there have been a bit of bottlenecks in getting the flow of funds out. And we are working on it, and we hope that we should have FLOCA functioning rather well in the course of this year. So I hope, Dr. Ottichilo, when you're back in government, I don't know in what capacity, that we shall have a FLOCA that is functioning, and we shall continue leveraging some of the work that the counties are doing. Very impressive to hear the work that Vihiga is doing on climate change. And we hope that we can see more of that going forward through FLOCA. So I want to say that, the question of partnerships has actually been discussed severally, and there have been efforts made. In this case, I am here, I'm speaking on this platform as Denmark. I know I don't look like a typical Danish, but as a representative of Denmark in this meeting, I want to say that
you're allowed.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so we've had quite a number of outreaches to Kenya, and all of these are aimed at trying to start partnerships, various types of partnerships, even with private sector in Denmark. I don't know if Dr. Ottichilo, you have participated in some of the missions that we've organized of Kenyan delegations to visit Denmark and to see the work that we are doing on climate change in Denmark. And the idea is not just the visit. The idea is also to try and stimulate partnerships between Kenya and Denmark and different facets of partnerships. So then also at the EU level, we have an initiative that we call Team Europe initiative. And the theme of that Team Europe initiative, one of it is Green Deal. We call it the Green Deal. And through that, we have actually been doing webinars with the government of Kenya, where we also invite other actors to come and join in. And the idea is, out of this Green Deal, we hope we can actually foster some partnerships that we can use going forward in addressing the challenge of climate change collectively. So I want to say that I think there's a lot more we can do, Kenya can do, and forgive me, sometimes I talk as a Kenyan also, even when I'm sitting in for Denmark. There's a lot that we can do, and listening to the experiences that were there in Glasgow, as presented by Dr. Ottichilo, it came to mind that there's so much we can do to build very strong partnerships, both within Kenya and also outside Kenya. And I just wanted to ride on what he said about Glasgow, and to say that a lot of partnerships that I'm aware of, not only in Kenya, but outside in the other countries where Denmark has missions, a lot of them have started in places like Glasgow, where you have, it's a multilateral gathering, and a lot of them have actually started out there. He mentioned that actually FLOCA was something that was discussed in Madrid. So I want to say that, we should take that opportunity. Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes, she's audible.
Oh, she dropped off. Oh, something must have happened. Well, let's hope we get her back. Something must have happened that she dropped off. I had quite a number of questions for her, which were connected to what His Excellency had spoken about, especially on the skills, information, and resources. And I wanted to find out which comes first. Is it the skills? Is it the information that require the technologies? Or is it the resources? Or can we lump them together? So I will request that if Mary, Mutemi, or somebody can try and get hold of Matioli, because I think she just dropped off. It must be a network issue. So in the meantime, as we wait for her to come back, I would like to now invite another of the speakers. I think we will get back Matioli once she's back online, more on the question and answer space, but I believe that we will get to hear a little bit more from her. Can politicians accelerate climate advocacy? I mean, this is a question that everybody is asking. This conversation today is about climate change and politics. And we know that those who are behind legislature, as the Excellency you've mentioned, is you created the policies at Parliament. But do we discuss this not only from the parliamentary point of view, but from a political point of view? In this particular case, I'm going to put the example of the United States of America. That is what happened during the time of when we were electing His Excellency Donald Trump, and the way he used climate change as a political tool. How can we use climate change as a political tool in a positive manner rather than negative manner? But before we go there, I think Elizabeth is back. Elizabeth, you're back?
She's not yet.
Hello?
Oh, she is.
She's back, she's back. I saw her. There she is.
Hello?
Hi, we can hear you.
Apologies, I'm working with a rather unstable network, and
No,
now I've even lost track
no
of where I was.
No worries.
But I think I better conclude because it doesn't look like it's gonna get better. I think by and large, the gist of my presentation so far is to say that partnerships is the way to go. And every opportunity we have, let us use it to build partnerships. Just a message to the government of Kenya, as we go out to all these climate COPs, I think one of the agenda we should strongly have is to go out there looking out for possible partners. Then internally, I think we need a very good review of the current partnerships we have. And I think FLOCA is one of the programs that give us a very good opportunity where we can demonstrate how partnerships can really work in addressing climate change. So I think the message is, let us look out for how we can build these partnerships, and they should actually be multifaceted, because at the end of the day, we need all kinds of actors on board, as I said earlier. it is the private sector that is going to bring the technology, the solutions, that is going to actually invest in some of these projects that are going to help us address climate change. And I know that our bias, of course, in Kenya should be more on adaptation, which has really faced a lot of challenges in attracting climate finance because most of the times it doesn't look that bankable, but I know that there's still an opportunity on how we can actually foster some partnerships, great partnerships, where we can also give some focus towards adaptation. So I think for me, I'll close at that point and to say that I can identify with some of the challenges that have also been mentioned. That we as Denmark and other EU member states, sometimes we have really had that keen interest to support Kenya, to collaborate with Kenya. But we found that sometimes there is a bit of a handicap in terms of how collaborative our partnerships have been with the actors here in Kenya. So, for example, for quite a long time, we have tried to understand what is the government's thinking around the finance that is needed to implement the NDC. How exactly, what programs are there to actually implement the NDC, what kind of financing is available, and where is the shortfall? And that has been a bit of a challenge to really get to the bottom of. And for a partnership to really work, you really do need a lot of transformation, a lot of exchange of information. And to say that you need to really have a dialogue where each partner can assess where the other partner is at and what the other partner is capable of bringing to the table. So I would say that there's a lot of work to do in terms of creating the ideal partnerships. But I think we are not in a bad place. We are somewhere where we can still forge ahead and we can still realize some really good results in our efforts towards addressing climate change. So I'll beg to stop at this point and I'll stay on for another 5 to 10 minutes. Apologies, I have to run to another engagement, but it's been a pleasure listening this far. Thank you, and back to you, Antony.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Before you run away, actually, I was just saying that you touched on aspects that were brought out by His Excellency, and I find interesting. There's a friend of mine who's an engineer who told me every problem has a solution. All you have to do is break it down to the smallest component, okay? Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing is we have a problem of financial flow, be it from the donor side, if we think about it from the donor side, and then we think about it from the recipient side, which is, in this particular case, for example, the county government of Vihiga. So they're sitting there waiting for money which has been released by the World Bank and sitting in treasury, and it's not getting to them. How do we untangle this problem? And now here I ask you the question from the point of view being Kenyan Danish, understanding the local context and the problem that we have, and thinking at it from the donor perspective and thinking to yourself, how do we get on the table all the interests involved? Because the issue of cash flow or money flow is always about interests. The donor will always look at their interests before they actually give any funding. So how do we discuss this interest in an open manner so that His Excellency is not frustrated from where he's seated, that the money is not flowing, so that we all know what's on the table and we can kind of untangle the financial flow problem?
Thank you for that question, Antony. And I think you'd be interested to know that we have another global level fund, the Green Climate Fund, that is also another monster that is facing more or less the same problems that we are facing here in Kenya. And I know that last year, even before the COP, there was a lot of noise about how it's really a very bureaucratic body. And it takes 3 years from the time you start doing a concept to the time you actually sign an award and get the money in. So it's actually what we have here in Kenya is really a replication of what happens at the global level. Mm-hmm. But to give the government of Kenya credit, I would say that as Denmark, we've had programs, bilateral programs with the government of Kenya. We are supporting the health sector, and we've been doing that for the past 8-10 years. And yes, there have been challenges with funds flow, but I would say that with Denmark itself, and also working with the Council of Governors more lately and the Ministry of Health, being proactive together with the National Treasury, I think we've managed to sort of diminish that problem over time. We've been able to get to a point where we understand where the bottlenecks are, and we've been able to address them. And I think the flow in our health sector program works better. And that's why we were confident when we invested in FLOCA, we were confident that the same mechanism that we've been using with the health sector is going to work if we are supporting climate change and aiming to get those funds down to the county level. And I think when I listened to His Excellency, I just thought that it's the same thing we need to do. We need to come together as all the parties in this program, and we need to discuss exactly what needs to be done to get the money from the national level to the county level at the fastest, at the most expeditious level possible, what we need to do for that to happen. Because I know I once was in this meeting and I was speaking to a climate activist who said, when we are all seated together, we agree that we urgently need to do something about climate change. And then when we are in our own spaces where we make decisions and where we are supposed to take actions, it then does not become urgent. So I know the people at Treasury, whether it's the CS or Dr. Muya, the PS, even our own president, they've sat in all these meetings and they do agree that it's urgent. But why is it not urgent now when it comes to really trying to channel the funds where they are most needed, and that is to the grassroots level? So I think in principle they do agree that it's urgent, but I think it is the bureaucracy that we need to really speak to. We need to really do something about. So I think I would just say it's going to take a lot of collaboration, and we are going to have to come together, and we are going to have to agree on certain standards. I know for the health sector there was a challenge because initially the counties wanted to be able to receive the funds as soon as they meet the access conditions. As a county, they wanted to receive the funds, but now for the disbursement unit at the Treasury, they found it too cumbersome to deal with the counties as individuals. They wanted to accumulate a batch of counties that would qualify, and then they would be able to do a disbursement to them at one go, rather than doing 47 single disbursements each time a county is ready, then you start disbursing. So I think there are challenges at all levels, but they are not insurmountable. So I would say it's not something that is impossible to deal with. It's really a simple issue if everybody comes to the table with a willingness to resolve this challenge. Yeah.
I like your word, willingness. Huh?
Yes, exactly.
And most of the times we call it political willingness.
Exactly.
Political willingness.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your thoughts, your ideas. I would request that at least you remain for a little bit of a while. I know you have another engagement, but let's cut the red tape today and let's forget the other engagement. Let's discuss climate change in Kenya, and let's see what we can do with it. At this stage, I would like to invite that political willingness. We have Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, who is the party leader for the Green Thinking Action Party, who would like to speak to us a little bit about the political space. Can politicians accelerate climate advocacy? I mean, that's a question we are asking him. And when I hear that, there are two things I know that a politician will respond to. The first one is, if my constituents are hungry because of climate change, it means they'll not listen to me, that's for sure. So that means I lose a vote. If my constituents have to migrate because they have to go and look for food, it means I lose a vote. So, Dr. Green, tell us a little bit about the political thinking and climate change.
Thank you. I am so excited to be part of this team today. I hope I can be heard.
We can hear you, but we've lost your camera.
Okay.
There you're back.
There, yeah. Thank you. I'm very excited to be part of this session, and very honorable members who are part of this meeting today. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ottichilo, and together with everyone else who is here, the Green Africa team. Thank you, the Danish embassy, and everyone who's here. I'm excited, and I align myself with most sentiments that have been made so far. And it's a very interesting discussion because what has been lacking, and I'll try to answer your question directly so that we can trigger discussions or even further action, because what needs to be done in most of these cases is action after all this. And I have an opportunity, I think, that I will use to make an ending request to His Excellency, the President, about operationalizing what our brother, His Excellency Ottichilo, has just talked about, right? Because I think it is not lost. In the final days of the current leadership, we can be able to make sure that this is operationalized for the good of our country. But let me say this in terms of what we need to do as a country. What we have lacked, and I want to encourage us because there is hope, is the willingness of people who are on this specific forum, and many more who think like we do, to relate our current issues and the environmental issues and climate change issues to three spaces. The first one, into ethical and efficient leadership. We need to align the climate change talk with ethical and efficient leadership. We need to align the climate change discussion with the sustainable wealth creation, because these are things that people are really looking up to. And whenever they talk about them out there, they discuss them as if they are away from what we are really talking about. And therefore, there is a separation. And then thirdly, we need to align our climate change issues with the dignity of the household. There is no household that will be upheld without having water. And water is a climate change issue. There is no household that is going to be upheld without jobs that will place food on the table. There is no growth of a household if we can't be able to take our children to school and to do things that are going to help us to advance in these areas. Lots have been said over the years, and we have been talking about various actions, but just as my sister from the Danish embassy has said, it is a fact that most of
Oh, we've lost Dr. Green. Oh, you're back. Sorry. You need to unmute. Please unmute. Please unmute. There you are. Go on.
Sorry. So we need to bring out these issues in a manner that is going to help action, because we are relating with the issues that Kenyans want to hear, Kenyans want to do. Kenyans are looking for jobs. We need to relate the climate change subject with the jobs, so that even the politicians who are elected, they have the agenda. They don't leave it with His Excellency Ottichilo and the people who are really enthusiastic about specific subjects on environmental matters. So we think, and I have said this statement a lot of times, and I will say it again, tell an African person to conserve the environment, you'll be left alone. But show them how to make money. They will go in that direction, even if it is to throw each other from a third floor, so that one can save the others to get to all this. So we need to change the subject so that we can use this as a bait to get the discussion more concerned. I recently came from Denmark. And out of the stay in Denmark, it was very interesting that It was a training program, a crash program that was supposed to be about 3 or 4 months, 3.5 months, condensed into 2.5 weeks or thereabout. And we learned a lot of things. And one day we met a 91-year-old gentleman. He said a few things within less than 10 minutes. But I for this forum, I will just mention this one. He asked, ask yourself how about 5.6 million people, less than 6 million people, have the capacity to feed well over 100 million people. They produce food to be able to lead so many people. And he talked about so many other things, including what we believe in, including timekeeping and how we can manage our time and prioritizing issues. And I was very excited also when he said, waste no time about history, because history is not what is going to help you in terms of what we have to deal with in climate change, as it were. We need to pick up what is the latest technology, who is doing the best to deal with the challenges, and run with it without wasting time on historical issues, because we need, the world is moving so fast, and therefore we need to apply this. Of course, they talked about so many things, including the fact that the Danish people never deal with issues in terms of, they never answer questions that they have never been asked. You ask and then you are told. They don't go out to generously give you information, as it were. I just came in yesterday from Japan, a country that has similar examples on resilience and the fact that they want to have a common voice. And therefore they started, just like the Danish people with the Danida, they started the TICAD, which is the Tokyo International Meeting for African Conference for African Development, looking for a common voice that will be able to help us to speak in one voice. Because our problem is not money. International communities are funding the country. International agencies on development are working with us. The moment we understand that this is the approach we need to use, it's going to help the political voice. It is going to be a clear direction that we need. I mean, talk about the community of the lower eastern region of our country, where there is not so much water in terms of rain, but you look at the development and the needs of how we can improve the area. In Japan, I just realized that there is no sand that is harvested from any river that we need to package, just like India, to pack the sand in packages, or have the factories mixing up the sand to the cement so that a ready product is sold. But the moment that the sand in our rivers is not helping the community yet, it is a natural resource. How are we going to talk a language that is going to help our people? But we are talking about these things, but we are lacking the common voice that is going to help us to enact and to come up with laws and policies that are going to change our country. The politicians are ready and available, but how busy are we putting together information, language that is going to help them to pursue a direction that is going to create jobs in our country, a direction that is going to enact laws that can completely deal with the challenges that we have. Why would it be difficult when Denmark, a high percentage of people are riding bicycles for their good health, the possibility of having good environment in their country, and even having electric cars? What we must not wait to go through what other countries went through. But therefore, my appeal and the possibility that I see with the politicians is, and why they have not prioritized the climate change issues, is because we have not aligned our discussion with what the common person wants to hear. We have not talked about jobs and related in a manner that makes sense to the environment and the people and the law maker, so that they can be able to understand that that person is speaking to the same language. And therefore, you find political parties and their agenda. You find a party like what we have in the Green Thinking Action Party. It's called a small party. Small party because of what? Because of lack of many members? Is it because of agenda? Is it because of what? And therefore, we need to prioritize, because what the party stands for, just like other parties that are there, it's the grandeurs of an institution is the subject matter that you carry and represent, not the followership. You may be great and lack the followers, and that does not mean that you stop working hard. And by the way, even the divisions that we have in this country, I foresee a situation without any doubt that whoever is going to be the president will need to shake hands with the other person who did not make it, so that this country can go in the best way that we need to have. Because the bigger issue is not the election agenda or the subject that has put someone in power, but the climate change challenge that we really must all combat and deal with for posterity. So this is the direction that I foresee. I thank institutions and governments like Denmark, Japan, and many others who are doing a great job, and we should not tire. And on this forum, which is expected to happen on a weekly basis, this is where I want to suggest, and I thank the team from Green Africa Foundation and other similar institutions that are working on this. Let us converge here on a weekly basis. Let us agree on what we can come together with and present to the institutions. Get friendly members of parliament who understand what it is that we can do. Work with Mheshimiwa Ottichilo, who is a champion in this space, that we can make his county an example to be emulated, not just locally, but regionally. And that is the way to influence politics, in my opinion, and very humble suggestion as I attempt to answer your question.
Thank you, Dr. Green. What I'm hearing is that we need to change the narrative. You're told a nation is not changed by war, neither by trying to force people to do different things or by the gun. It's changing the narrative. And the question in this conversation we are starting here today is, how do we make our politics issue-based? How do we make our politics discuss climate change? And sometimes I normally say, for the age I've arrived at, I'm already a spent cartridge. We now have to look at the next generation of individuals. In this particular case, then we're looking at the youthful leaders and politicians to ask them, this is the path we took. What's the new path we need to take? And I think this is kind of captured a little bit what Dr. Green talked about there, which is addressing the future, not looking so much backwards and thinking forward. So in this particular case, I would like to bring on board Modesta Lynn. Modesta will be speaking towards the youthful politicians and how they can influence in climate change work in Kenya. Because the reason we bring this out is, whether we like it or not, we don't want to accept the fact, but 75% now of our voters are youth. And 75% of this country, or the future of this country, is the youth. So if we are thinking about policies and engagements and what we want to discuss in terms of climate change which affects you in the future, I think it's very crucial to hear what your thoughts are. So Modesta, please welcome, and let's hear what do you think the youth, and especially young youthful politicians, should be discussing in terms of climate change?
Thank you very much, Mr. Antony, and I thank you very much, Green Africa Foundation, for this opportunity. I would also like to recognize the presence of His Excellency, Dr. Ottichilo. As a youth, I am very impressed with this conversation, and being part of this, I am very honored. Ideally, I would think that the conversations that we're supposed to be having, especially with youthful politicians, is kind of changing the narrative. There's always been plans that has been from the older generation. I call them the young at heart. But now there's a new system coming up. The new generation of people are more aware about the climate change crisis, and they're taking more action about the same. But then now we have this disparity between what was there before and what we want to do now, and how the fact that the youthful politicians are now the link between the old and the new, especially in regards to policy development, creates a new space for them to be able to bridge this gap. So you find a situation whereby we have new laws and new policies coming up, as has been echoed by almost all the speakers. We have this very good laws and very good plans, but then there's the problem of implementation. But then now, why is the implementation part a problem? It's simply because there isn't a mechanism to actually put in place what has been written or spoken of. So you find a situation whereby I really believe that youthful politicians will be the greatest aspect to bring the issue of scenario mapping. So now we have past data, and I know we've said that we're not supposed to be looking at history, but then we have the past data that was there before, and we have current data that is here. How do we create our policies and our plans in a way that we have acknowledged what has happened before, the data that was there before, and the trends that are happening now, in a way to actually create a future and a plan that actually acknowledges what will happen in the future in regards to climate change. And this will also involve a lot of what has been spoken about, including experts on the same. And I think there's always been a disparity in including the different scholars, experts in the field, in actually creating some of these policies. You find that it's mostly politicians, and I do agree that that is their job per se. But then ideally, not everyone knows everything. So the youthful politicians are actually a key ingredient in creating this bridge between having the experts coming in and the politicians who they're actually dealing with on a daily basis, in order to create policies that actually kind of interact with what will happen in the future, because we're no longer thinking about now. We are thinking about 5 years from now. What are the trends that are going to happen? How are we supposed to fix what has already happened? And I saw in the comment section, one of the climate activists that I've actually been able to engage with talk about how we are always having a conversation about adaptation, but then we don't really consider mitigation. And some of these conversations are mostly done by youths on the issue of mitigation. Okay, yes, we are adapting currently, and it's not in the best way possible. But then how are we mitigating the effects also? And this includes having policies that actually help in mitigation in a long-term basis. And I also want to also mention that this implementation, as I've clearly said, will not involve one party. There are two generations, mostly in the political space, in the electoral system. There's the young at heart, and there's the young people who are currently here. And having these youthful politicians will help actually merge some of the approaches that the older generation are able to have, and also merge what the current generations are having towards climate change, because we experience climate change on different levels. The older generation mostly experiences in regards to the issues of agriculture, and that's why you see that most manifestos of most political leaders highlight issues of climate smart agriculture, and climate change is mostly in connection to the agricultural sector. But as we all know, climate change affects a myriad of sectors, not just the agricultural sectors. We have the energy sector being impacted. We have kind of like technological and innovation sectors being affected by the climate change crisis. But then how are we able to merge the approaches by the older generations and also the approaches by the young generations in a way that whatever plans we have are able to actually move forward in a way where we're able to mitigate and also adapt to the climate change crisis. So I really do think that youthful politicians create that space for them, because they have now that link to the politicians who create the policies, and they have also the link to the young people that they actually represent, and be able to kind of create a space where this can be able to happen. Also, I think one thing that really affects most youths is the issue of financing and actually accessing it. So I'm hearing a lot of new plans that I don't think most of our youths actually knew about. And there's this disparity in information systems, kind of like moving from like the national sectors to just like down below to the youths who are actually doing most of the actions. Because if you look at I look a lot of Twitter spaces actually have the activities I engage in involve youths doing the tree plantings, doing the kind of trainings for people to be able to do some of this vertical gardening, especially in urban areas. And you actually see that these people need to be empowered, and mostly this empowerment is required in terms of finances, but they're not able to access it. And how do we actually bridge this gap? This is where the youthful politicians come in, because they have access to that political space, the people who make the budgets, the people who make the allocations, and being able to actually influence this budgetary allocation to be to trickle down to the youths who are actually doing the actions on the ground. And believing that young people just, are always just vocal all the time, on the streets, that's not the only work they do. Young people are very interested in what's going on, but then there's not really a space for them to actually access this information, access this space, because most of the times people just see them as quote unquote a nuisance. So youthful politicians being present in some of this kind of spaces allows other youths to also access the same space. So they create systems, sustainable systems actually, but they're able to just be able to access, if it's financing, if it's policy reviews that are actually happening, how do these youthful politicians are the kind of channel that other youths, actually youth-led organizations that we are springing up over time, to be able to be part of the conversation in the room, not just having just the conversation, but also part of the implementation bit of it. Because you'll find that the older we grow, I have to say, I'm not able to do as much as maybe other people are able to do. But then being a young person, I'm able to access kind of the local community way faster than kind of like the older generation. So if we're able to access some of this policy reviews or some of these plans that government people have, then we're able to actually be the implementers of this, because we do have the energy of it. And we keep saying the young people are the future of each country, but then we're not actually giving them the time to actually implement some of these futuristic plans that we have as a nation. So if having youthful politicians will create a space for implementation as well, a sustainable space for it. We always say implementation is an issue, but that's because we do not create kind of action plans for each aspect of climate change. We just say, oh, we have a plan about, we want to, for example, the plastic kind of acts that we created. We've said that we want to, there's no more single-use plastic, but then there's no information system for the local Mwananchi, because we still see some of our groceries having single-use plastic, because as Dr. Kalua was able to mention, they still can't be able to afford to always constantly buy the other new bags that are more climate friendly. But then how are we able to have these plans translated in a way that innovations also are able to channel into the plans? So that's where the futuristic planning also comes in, because we're not only just looking at plans in a way we're saying, we want to change this, we want to change that in regards to climate change friendly usage, but we're also creating innovations that are also affordable for people. And that's why young people come in, because they see, for example, single-use plastic is a problem, but we have these bags instead. But then how do we still make these bags affordable for our mothers that we actually engage with every single day, who are also part of the, who are in the market systems, who are also part of the people who build the GDP as well. So having plans for this is something that the youthful politicians will be able to also translate for most of these parliamentary proceedings and creating of plans and policies. The last thing I think I want to mention is expert inclusion. And I think I really need to emphasize on this. The youths have a very good network, because they are stuck in the middle of kind of like the future generation that's coming up and the older generation that's been there. And they're literally in the middle of it. And this means they're more aware of what parents, for example, the people who are actors or parents were able to experience in regards to climate change. And they're also able to relate to what the kind of like the younger generations are going through in regards to climate change. And this gives them a very good opportunity to be experts in whatever field that they are engaging in climate change. So is it energy? Is it reforestation, forestation? Is it food security issues? And we need to channel into that. And that's where we always have a gap, because we always see that young people are still coming up, but we're not aware of how much these people are, how much knowledge they actually hold. And having youth politicians engage more in such spaces allows for this translation of knowledge from the future generation and old generation kind of coming up. and also being able to be translated into kind of like a mapping and sustainable actions in regards to climate change. So I really do think we need to give more credit to the youth, and we need to give them more opportunities for them to be able to tackle some of the issues that sometimes even are a problem for older generations to be able to look into. Implementation is being done currently. I have seen plenty of youths. I have been part of the plenty of youths who are doing reforestation activities, who are doing cleanup activities on rivers. I've seen a lot of community, youth community groups just arrange themselves, organize themselves on their own to be able to tackle some of the issues they see within their community. And they also have just the right amount of time and right amount of energy to be able to tackle it. And we're not utilizing this as a nation. And I think that's where the problem is. We have trainings happening, we have capacity building, but we always want to repeat the same people who were there before. How about we have some of this, identify some of these community groups? How about we create a climate change forum for youths to be able to sit down, engage, and question leaders, and also have conversations with them. What are you guys planning? How are we able to tap into this? So you're planning to have maybe regreening of an entire county, for example, as Dr. Ottichilo was mentioning in Vihiga County. I'm so sure there's so many youths in Vihiga County who are already doing reforestation. So how do we tap into the financing system that we have in a county, for instance, into these youths who are already doing this? So they've coordinated themselves in a way where the different wards that we always want to tap into is already working. So they in one ward or the second ward, and it's just way easier even for national government and county governments to actually channel finances, channel time, channel expertise to be able to build a climate resilient nation. So there's a lot of gaps, but there's also a lot of opportunities. I see these gaps as opportunities that youth can really tap into, and having the youthful politicians actually joining this electoral system, actually with this current election where there's a lot of youths who are vying, and I'm really proud of that, gives us the hope that there is more to come. And I really would wish that they're able to be part of this conversation more. And they're also able to just see how much their counterparts are doing on the ground and be able to translate it to what they want to plan with the government. So that is my comments on this same. And I really believe that in terms of capacity building and dialogues, youths are really coming up. I recently was part of the organizing team for the local conference of youth, which is basically a dialogue platform for climate change issues for young people, and kind of creates a youth report, also a youth statement in regards to climate change. But then being able to have these documents actually reach the electoral system, the people who are in government system, is a very hard tussle, because there's not enough kind of political will to be able to just engage with the youths. And there is need for it. And there is that kind of, everyone realizes that we need to do it, but there's no system for us to actually access and actually have these conversations together. And if we're able to have this reconnecting item happening between us, then as young people, as older generations, we can be able to move the climate change agenda in a way whereby we are solving issues, we are adapting to the climate change issues, but we're also mitigating these issues. And in long term, even be able to actually have these plans within us, ourselves as a nation, and not really relying on the global community to just always fund us, to always have ideas for us or plans for us. So yes, that's my view on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Modesta. I think across the themes of everybody who has spoken, there are three things that are coming out again. And I think I mentioned them at the beginning: the right skills, the right information, and enough resources to be able to tackle these things. There is a question that came through, Your Excellency, for you. And maybe I come back to you now. And there's a gentleman who was asking what you have done quite well in Vihiga, and he was asking for the areas of Samburu, Marsabit, and Garissa. So that is county of Garissa, the county of Marsabit, and I think that area, the northern part of Kenya. Maybe you might want to comment on what is happening, on what the committee is doing on climate change adaptation in those areas.
Thank you very much for that question. I would like to say that as a Council of Governors, we have agreed that, as I said earlier, climate change is a challenge, but it's a challenge that has a lot of opportunities. And I want to echo what Dr. Isaac Kalua has said. If we are going to have climate change embraced by politicians, by people, we must show the opportunities that climate change is bringing on the table. And actually, when you look at climate change, it is bringing in very new opportunities, which will create employment, which will create food security, and it's giving us an opportunity to do things in a different way, but very innovative and in a very responsible manner. Yes. So I think that's one strategy that as players in this field, we must change our strategy. Otherwise, if we talk the way we talk in terms of climate change as a technical subject, it will be very difficult to sell it, and particularly to politicians, because I sit with the politicians every day and I know their mindset and how they think. If there is no opportunity, something that is short term and so on, you hardly get them. As regards the arid and semi-arid lands, I must say that they are the ones that feel the brunt of climate change in a very severe way. And I know before we got into climate change as a Council of Governors, those areas had projects that were being funded by various partners to deal with the mitigation and adaptation to climate change in those areas. And I'm aware that quite a lot has been achieved, particularly in areas like Makueni, where you see now people going into conservation agriculture. I saw recently in Machakos what is going on in conservation agriculture. So I can say that with good approach, you can find that we may turn even the arid and semi-arid lands, which we consider now very, areas that are not real good for habitation. Maybe they are our food baskets in the future with climate change, because we shall be able to bring in new agriculture practices that will make this happen. And also those areas, they have relied wholly on pastoralism or livestock rearing as the main economic state. But with climate change, it is changing. People are changing, are adapting to different circumstances. And therefore, I've seen even in Garissa, I've seen where people have gone into farming, irrigation, and I've seen very good crops growing in those areas and with good yield. So I would think that with a well-focused strategy, climate change could turn out to be a blessing, where we do things completely different. For example, here in Vihiga, we've just started, I told you about the investment program we have started. And I'm seeing people are very enthusiastic about it. They are able now, they are seeing that they can be able to do things differently. We are now introducing irrigation in here, where normally we get about 2,000 millimeters of rainfall. But because now it's so erratic, people are not sure when they will do. So we are now going into small scale irrigation. So in a nutshell, before I switch off, because I have to go to another meeting, I want to say that this journey is a long journey, but we must walk this journey well focused. We must have people like Dr. Kalua who are focused and they are talking about this subject every day. They are enthusiastic, and we want to get champions, people who will move and talk until this information gets to the people. And I'm very happy that finally the media, the social media and the print media and the electronic media, now they have got the climate change subject very clearly. And now every day I pick a newspaper, I get an article on climate change. Even business, a newspaper, which I always think they will do business alone. Now, every time I pick it, I find something on climate change. So this is an indication that climate change is now getting entrenched in our lifestyle, and we will be able to move. Finally, the government that is going to come in must focus on climate change. All these promises we are making, they are grand, they are good, but they will not come to pass unless we take climate change as a key driver to our economy.
Thank you very much, Excellency. As we let you go, I think there's something that has been mentioned by Modesta, which I would give as a gift. I think she's given you a very free gift as you leave this session. The comment she has made on agriculture and age. And I think I was recently in a session somewhere in Nyeri, which was organized by our good friend there, where he's trying to give some advice to youth who are just leaving high school. And there was a young lady who was 24 years old, who is a farmer. She has graduated from university with a degree in agribusiness, and she's gone into large-scale farming. And this is, I think, the mindset, part of what we're talking about, changing the narrative, that agriculture is not just for old people. Agriculture is not for the retired. You know, when we used to work, and then when you retire, you know, we expect Modesta to be at the farming level. And I think this is a gift that you've been given for your campaign trail, especially addressing the youth and showing them where to get to put the money on the table. And I think Dr. Isaac Kalua spoke about it. A very simple example: how do we get the nurseries that are developed by youth to become commercially viable? Can the county government, which is planting seedlings, be able to buy from this? I think this is a wonderful opportunity to gain from each other. Asante sana, Your Excellency. We do understand that you have some time to look for other things to do, and we are grateful that you actually spent quite a bit of time with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm very happy. Dr. Kalua, I'm very proud of you. I love what you write every day, every time I read the newspaper. Keep on moving. We are very happy, and we are moving to some place. Thank you, and God bless.
God bless.
Could we have a group photo? Could we have a group photo before His Excellency leaves?
I think
Can turn on our cameras.
you already left.
Just a minute before you go.
Okay.
He's still there.
Okay. This group
And
photo,
maybe
this system thing, group photo, how does it work?
Yes, kindly let everybody put on their, switch on their cameras, and then we will have the photo taken.
Antony, can you hear me?
Yes, but I think His Excellency has left. Well, yes, Dr. Green, I can hear you.
I return to make a comment on an issue that has been raised on the comments that have been slotted in. And I want to appreciate what Modesta and everyone else has said. When I talk about history and where we are wasting a lot of time in, history is very, very important. When I refer to history, I'm referring to the technology that is already advanced in many areas, that we do not have to start going back to try and understand the historical approach to dealing with issues, but to pick what is already working in other regions and other countries that have already employed and have made a lot of progress on. Therefore, the historical process that I'm talking about is one that is going to help us not to waste time on what we can leapfrog and apply what other countries have already done. This is the reference that I'm talking about. And I can't agree anymore with with what our youthful leaders have said on this forum, and I'm sure they carry the comments of so many others. So I just wanted to make that clear and help each one of us to become a champion. If you're doing something that is green and good and needs support, let us all applaud that space and that individual in a manner that we are going to be unified towards achieving what is going to be good for common good. Thank you so much. And I'm proud of everyone who is on this forum.
Thank you, Dr. Bree. Thank you very much. As we come to the last comment, I recognize a friend of mine who is here. I've just seen him online, Zana Kolongo. Zana is a chairman of the Symposium for Episcopal Conference of Africa and Madagascar, Bishops' Conference of Africa and Madagascar on governance, and he's sitting in Ghana. So thank you very much for joining us. I know it's quite early in Ghana at the moment. So I would like to ask Emmaqulate if there is something that you might want to state as we come towards the end.
Thank you, Antony. I just want to say thank you so much for the Green Africa Foundation, for everyone else who's joined, for the speakers, for their very valuable contribution. And just to add, as Modesta said, as we, put up policies, let's always ask ourselves, for whom? For whom are we doing these projects? For whom are we putting up these policies? And then when we have the answer, we must ensure that those people are on the decision-making table. They're involved in decision-making, because these are policies and interventions that are going to affect them directly. So as we move on in making climate change and in ensuring climate change is a political agenda, let's do so with the mind of including the youth, including women, and all the populations really in climate planning and decision making.
Thank you, Emmaqulate. Thank you very much. Modesta, might you have something that you want to say for closing?
Yes. Ideally, this goes to my fellow youths. We do have ideas. We do have a lot of work we're doing. But I was really hoping that we can be able to now factor in the fact that we need to consolidate our efforts. We need to stop the act of individualism when it comes to climate change efforts. So if we're going to access funds, if we're going to work with other partners, we need to also consolidate our efforts. And really hoping that this is something that any politician can be able to coordinate, even creating councils for youths who are working on climate change issues. And that will be a very easier way of even having the national government, facilitate some funding opportunities. And also on the aspect of skill development for the young people, if we can be able to have more learning opportunities for them. As mentioned, there is a lot of training opportunities even in other countries that target African and other developing countries. If we can be able to channel this for the young people, because they're going to be the leaders. Actually, they are the leaders who are coming up right now. And if you're able to facilitate them being more aware about climate change and being more knowledgeable about innovations and practices that are happening in other countries, as Dr. Kalua said, and tapping into that, then we need to give them more learning opportunities and capacity building opportunities as well for the same. So I'm really looking forward to having an election that has that is more open to having climate change discussions and climate change agendas on the table, and having most of our youths also channeling this and also facilitating the implementation for the same. So that's my last remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Modesta. There were two questions that came up from Mika Lopez just as the governor was concluding. And I think the secretariat at the Green Africa Foundation, I think, will follow up on that. There was one on issue of interests, and the second one was the perception on the counties that have not done anything. Yeah. So I think this is something that the Green Africa Foundation should be able to pick up and give a feedback, at least to Mika. Dr. Green, do you have closing remarks?
No, you can take what I said as a final remark and call upon each one of us to be appearing whenever we are called on this session and share very practical issues that can be applied at different levels. Let's be the change that we need to be. And Modesta, thank you. Keep up. I got your back in whichever way God will enable me. You're the best. Thank you, team.
Thanks, Dr. Green. At this earlier stage, I'd like to welcome John Kioli, the ED of Green Africa Foundation, to make closing remarks. And thank you very much for the attention. John?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mbandi, for that very, very interactive session. I want to thank all the panelists and for their engaging work they've done in their organizations, and also coming up with 2 hours of your very prime time on a Friday morning to join us. I really thank you. I want to thank the participants as well for taking time. At one time we were 40-something, almost 50, and that's something I want to really thank you for your patience and your time in this great engagement. I want to say that this agenda will continue. The agenda of climate change and politics is there even internationally. When President Donald Trump took over, you all remember the Paris Agreement was amiss in America. He walked the country out of Paris Agreement. This was again reinstated when the current president, Biden, came in and the Paris Agreement was reinstated in the US. What does that tell you? That tells you internationally, climate change is a political issue. Regionally, work we have done as Green Africa Foundation, the Kenya Climate Change Working Group, and other organizations like SIF Kenya has culminated to stopping of funds coming towards coal generation, especially in Kenya. And I can tell you that Africa Development Bank has now said they will no longer fund issues around coal in Africa. And that's a milestone that the civil society organizations have done. Taking back what Honorable Ottichilo and other speakers have said, the Climate Change Council is the now center of the Climate Change Act of 2016. The Climate Change Fund has told. We are operating on a national climate change action plan, which is not legal because it has to be sanctioned by the Climate Change Council. Quite a number of activities have stalled. The operationalization, that word fills my mouth, but we are sure that the Climate Change Act is not operating as it was. Thank you, Dr. Kalua. Thank you, in absentia, Dr. Wilber Ottichilo, for taking this issue to the next level. We believe that you're going to talk to those people who are responsible, the duty bearers, to activate the sitting of the council so that as a country, we are back to our feet as this government goes. We are optimistic that the work we are doing is not in vain. So as Green Africa Foundation, we want to reiterate that we shall continue these engagements. We shall reach out to you so that this conversation doesn't end. I want to thank you once again, and may God bless you all for taking time to react and work on these issues around climate change and politics in Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. And thank you much, all participants. I think it's my duty to bring this session to a close. We are 3 minutes to midday, and we wanted to make sure we are through by midday. We pray that you enjoy your weekend, and remember to live simply. Living simply allows us to be able to save a little bit on water, a little bit on food, a little bit on something else. Thank you very much, and God bless. I'd like to ask Dr. Green to pray for us as we close.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for taking good care of us throughout this session. We pray that you may help us to be a blessing to this nation. You have created us for a purpose. We pray that that purpose will be within your good plans for us and for the great people of this nation, the people of Africa, and the world at large. Help us to be who you want us to be, to impact the nations on matters of climate change, and help us to create opportunities, oh God, for your people. We thank you for Green Africa Foundation and every presenter and everyone who attended this meeting. We pray that you may support the youth and you may help us to be the change that we would want to see. So bless each one of us and everything that we do, and bless our family members and create opportunities for us, even as we become a blessing to your nation. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, everybody. Kwaherini.
Maybe we can have a photo session before we leave.
Another photo session?
Yeah, we didn't take photos last time.
So who is, can you tell guys to put, maybe there are guys who don't want to put on their cameras.
Yeah, Diani also need to, yes, good. I can go there. So, you'll take the photo, Diani?
I think because you have a laptop, you can just take it. I'm missing my phone.
Okay. Right. Just 1 second. Yes. So we have a nice photo.
On digital, do you smile digitally? How do you do this?
No, people are smiling. The photo is taken already.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much.
All right.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.